Well, what you doing, boo?
Man, spring cleaning has been pretty much the theme for me all week, man. I've been going through the house, like looking at stuff in the house, like closets. Like, if I were moving, would I keep this? The answer is no. I'm getting rid of it. So yeah, this is there's twice a year the city comes around and does a free pickup of this kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So mine's happening on Tuesday. So yeah, I've got a bunch of stuff to put out to the curb. That what's so funny is every time people do this, the scavengers come around and pick through it. So by the time the city comes around to pick it up, there's less than half typically of what you put out there ends up. And it's funny, the stuff that the scavengers will pick up, dude. It's really funny. I mean,
I'm gonna need examples because number one, it'll give me an insight into like what's been lurking and hiding in Matt Trogdon's closet.
Yeah, just any random glass bits you put out there. I put an oscillating fan. Last year, I put an oscillating fan out there that I had since I was 14 years old. I had the same oscillating fan since I was 14, and it quit working last year. So I put it out the curb. Somebody picks that up. I mean, these people, the stuff people will take. I don't know what they do with it, but
I wonder if the fan had copper in it. Like, I know people will scrounge out of everything for copper.
I mean, it probably had a very minimal amount, but I don't know, man. Strange. I guess if you have an appliance fixing business, those are parts that you want. I could guess all day, but it's a lot of old home decor stuff that I'll put out, and yeah, people snatch that stuff all day because there's nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of
moved on.
Yeah, it's what's been sitting in the attic for 10 years.
Hey, one man, you know the saying, one man's trash is another man's trash that he thinks is treasure.
Yeah, it's TV shows been made on that basis.
Right. Well, that sounds like good times. You having fun doing it, or at least like I'm trying to like picture like Matt Trogdon, Marie Kondoing his life. Does this bring me joy? Is it thrashing? No.
It's just nice to purge the house of a bunch of useless stuff. I don't like having a bunch of useless stuff just taking up space. So it's just nice. It's like almost therapeutic just to purge all this garbage that I know I'm never going to use, I don't really want, and just get it out that I don't have to mess with anymore. I dumped off, I don't know. I mean, I took, to electronics recycling. I went yesterday and I got rid of, I had an old printer. I had an old air fryer. I mean, I had all this stuff. I had one whole box of nothing but coax cables.
Yeah, right.
That, you get a new satellite system, and then they just give you, they leave the extra I had just odds and ends garbage that just accumulates that you don't throw in, that you just set aside.
I feel like everybody's got that box in their attic that's like got all the red, white, and green, or red, white, and yellow wires, and from like the old PlayStation, everything. Yeah. Roger and I do that. We do that like around Christmas time, or just after Christmas when we're putting everything back up. Because like I'll go up in the attic and start looking around just to make space to put all the decorations and stuff back up, and it's just like, okay, what are we doing with this thing? Can we move this down? And we'll end up throwing it away or donating it or tossing it somewhere. But
it's like cleaning out a catch-all drawer, except it's your whole house.
Well, but sometimes when you're walking around after you've done that, you look around and there is a quintessential piece that is missing. You ever have that feeling like you notice that something's missing in your life?
Every moment of every day, pretty much.
That's true. But right now, that piece that's missing is one Mr. Craig Lance, because we are flying Craigless today. We've been left to our own devices, which I don't know if necessarily that might be a bad thing, right? Like when Craig's away, who knows what kind of shenanigans we could get into.
Yeah, it's true. Mm-hmm. It's like the equilibrium's thrown off. All of a sudden it's like a wounded duck in the air.
Or it's like Dad went away on a business trip and the sons are going to throw a party.
Yeah, at one point in my life, I would agree with that. But oh man, Dad went away on a business trip. Sons are going to bed early.
now it's 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and we're up and excited to do a podcast.
Yeah.
Living wild, let me tell you. Well, this is the 172nd episode of the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
Matt Trogdon.
And yeah, we have no Craig today. He, as far as the story that I got, helped his mother-in-law, his sweet little mother-in-law, get moved yesterday, which involved a long trip and a really bumpy U-Haul. So he is recovering and recuperating. So, kind gestures, good stuff. Proud of him.
Yeah. No good deed goes unpunished. That's what I say.
That's the damn truth. But we're going to try to make it without him. We're going to, grab ourselves by the bootstraps, as they say, which really is impossible to do. I never understood that saying. But we're gonna succeed. I have it. I feel it in my soul. We're gonna do awesome things on this show. So yeah, you've been cleaning all week. I have just been doing school and work stuff. Nothing really super notable, or at least that is notable on a comics podcast. Just a lot of studying. So I can tell you about so one thing we're reading is in my entertainment law class I'm taking. We are getting ready to read the Agnite v. Shakur case, which is could be otherwise named Haitian Jack versus Tupac, which the celebrity name there is Tupac, obviously, but there's a new documentary called The Underground Hip Hop or something like that, and it really follows like these 5 key figures who were just like massive drug dealers in the 80s who, without them, like hip hop wouldn't have happened. One of which being Haitian Jack, very, very scary man.
Wow.
Who may or may not have actually been the real person who had Tupac killed, and then sued him because they posthumously released a Tupac record where Tupac did a line in his song where he was talking shit about Haitian Jack and called him a snitch. So he he may or may not have killed this man, and then he sued his family.
Damn.
Yeah. I'm just like, I need folks to know who Haitian Jack is while we're talking about this case, because that's the real story. So
man,
that's my most notable thing of the week, living vicariously through really scary, dangerous hip hop people. But
interesting. Wow.
Man, so I think I know you're not a super big hip hop fan, but I know you like history and documentaries, and kind of like the quote unquote, discover the truth of things. I think you would like that documentary.
I've watched I want that HBO hip hop documentary was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember the name of it, but it focused more on the producer that worked with Dr. Dre, some of the NWA guys, if I recall. But it was funny because he was like a really mainstream producer. I mean, he worked with Stevie Nicks and Tom Petty, and it was just interesting because it's nice to see these guys talked about as young, talented artists,
right?
Instead of like thugs.
What mainstream white culture called them at the time.
Yeah, I mean, because they're not. I mean, realistically speaking, these guys, they were just kids. The kids that wanted to be musicians, with very few exceptions to that. And so it's nice to kind of see a documentary actually explore that side of things. Versus the image that they portray for entertainment purposes,
For sure. Yep.
It really brings out how smart and savvy these guys were from a young age.
Well, it really plays up the fact that these were just really good storytellers. Like they were really good at reflecting a culture and telling a story. But no, check out, like I said, I'll send you a link to it. It's called like Hip Hop Uncovered or Underground or something like that. I forget what the name of it is, but it's on all of the streaming services. One of the other things they talk about, so this other guy who is from New York, his name's Bimmy. Again, by the time he was 19, probably was raking in just hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash from the drug trade. Just a really scary gangster dude. Went to Run DMC and told them, "Hey, I'm going on tour with you guys." And they were like, "Yeah, of course you are, because you're Bimmy. Why would you not?" And if you go back and you watch when Run DMC had that big breakthrough moment where they played on the Joan Rivers show, Bimmy is one of the B-boys standing in the background on the stage with his arms crossed. one of the most like legitimately most dangerous drug dealers on the Eastern Seaboard is just kicking it on the background in Joan Rivers. So
man, that's interesting.
It's crazy. But you know what else is crazy? Comics.
True.
They are. Did you get any read this week?
I did read a few, some notable.
Like three notables?
Three notables, coincidentally enough. The Cimmerian Iron Shadows in the Moon from Ablaze. Did you read this?
It is literally the next book on my stack. I read through, I had 2 weeks worth of reading to do this weekend because last weekend was really hectic. But this is like literally, I'm going to read it after we get off the show today.
Well, the art in the story is done by, in this name, Virginie, is how this is spelled, Augustin. I really like, man, I'm really glad that these are happening. These just, what they're calling uncensored adaptations of the original stories. I'm really glad these are happening.
Yes.
Some of them I have liked more than others, but all together, they're just really, it's really nice to get this traditional Conan the Barbarian story feel in this form. And this one I really dug, man. And these are saying it, and I've said this again. I've said it a million times. I'll say it again. The Conan the Barbarian reminds me of the Punisher. It's a very simple character. These are not complicated story arcs to write. But that's the beauty of the characters. You have complicated characters that are involved in massive plots, yada yada yada. But what was so great about the original Conan the Barbarian stories is it's a low level fantasy. It's low fantasy as compared to the high fantasy of give me a good high fantasy comparison here. I mean, I want to say Lord of the Rings, but I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's enough high fantasy. Like Harry Potter. Let's just say Harry Potter.
I was going to say the Salvador books.
But anyway, these are just, and these straight adaptations of that is just, I just really wish more writers would take note of just how this is really about the character of Conan the Barbarian and not the mystical, or so much the mystical world that he inhabits. So there's my step down off my soapbox.
No, I feel you. And a lot of times, at least for me, it's the texture that they build around those characters that make those stories so fun.
Well, yeah, it's what Robert E. Howard did. That's the thing, is they're not trying too hard to overdevelop that stuff, and just it's so that, yeah. But anyway, moving on, I could go on and on about it. But also I read, and I want to have to feel like I should give props here. Today's Conan the Barbarian run from Marvel, number 20. But this one, of course, Jim Zub is writing this. Corey Smith did the pencils on this issue. I haven't been super crazy about Jim Zub's run altogether. This particular issue, I really dug. This one felt very much like the one that I were just talking about from Ablaze. So I felt like I needed to go ahead and give the guy props for this one because I really dug that issue. And then thirdly on this stack, I read Batman number 107 from DC Comics. Now this is James Tynion the fourth and Jorge Jimenez. So the Batman story, I mean, I liked it, but this was strange because it was this comic book was 50% Batman, 50% Ghostmaker. Two separate stories. I don't understand DC Comics. One more thing that you're doing that I don't understand. I mean, why do we have this? Why do we have Batman number 107 as a 50% Batman book? I don't get it, but that's the thing. Another thing that they're doing.
I mean, the low-hanging fruit of answers is that they're trying to make Ghostmaker a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing I thought of, was like, are they trying to build steam up for this character before they launch a comic book? I mean, it's like, I think that's kind of a chicken shit bottom feeder way to do it. I mean, use Batman's momentum to build your character up in this fact. I don't know. But anyway, that's a thing they're doing. And I wasn't super crazy about it. I mean, I paid $4.99 for a Batman book and I got half of it.
Right. And was it regular size? I'm assuming it was regular sized.
This, I mean, I didn't count the pages. It feels like it's a little bit bigger than the average comic book.
Yeah.
But I paid $4.99 for it, so it should be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, there we are.
I'm not feeling Tynan's Batman run. I'm just not. I don't know. And I like the guy as a writer. Like he's written lots of stuff I've read before, and he's a good plot craftsman. But it's just not coming through here, and I don't know, man. I'm just not capping into it. So, which is disappointing because I was really looking forward to it because I do think he's a really talented storyteller. But
yeah.
Before I drop my little short stack, have you read? I want to go back to the Cimmerian. Have you read any of the other like non-Conan related stuff that has been come out of Ablaze?
Nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, I haven't either. If you pick up previews and go to your catalog, when they first came on the scene, it was only the Conan or the Cimmerian related stuff. But now they're branching out and they're doing like other characters, other bits of genre. But I haven't tried anything out, and I'm just wondering, where they're going with their publication.
Well, they just released a Marie Levitt book.
Yeah, that was another one that because Craig spoke about that one a little bit. And I haven't checked that out either. So I'm just wondering how those things are, like if the quality is just in the Cimmerian or if it's that publisher, if they're doing a really good job with kind of their entire catalog. I don't know. I need to widen my net with Ablaze. All right. So I'm going to drop my 3. I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off fast. I want you to take a deep breath. We'll get through it. I'm not going to get into it too much, but just bear with me here. The first book on my short stack is Strange Avengers #9, Tom King's, Mitch Gerrard's, and Evan Shaner. I am deeply loving this story. This felt like #9 turned a corner. They are really getting into what Adam Strange may or may not have done in the name of saving his own planet, and what he's willing to do to save ours, and whether or not the Earth superheroes are going to allow it. Really feels like what is being funneled into this story is that, some of the things that we learned of in 2008 to 2012 about acts that had been committed in the name of saving us, in the name of freedom, in the name of saving lives in other countries. And I think that's this whole time that's been the big juxtaposition, is whether or not that has, what does the media have to say? What, who's doing the right thing? What acts are justifiable in the name of saving lives, or at least under the guise of saving lives. And there's this really big moment between Adam Strange and Superman that just got me all goosebumpy. So go check that out. It's a really, and I know the way that you feel about Tom King stories, but this to me is if you like Tom King stories, this is good Tom King. And some of these little like one-off stories are the better. But I mean, even if you don't, like, setting the plot aside, if you just want to, like, give candy to your eyeballs, like if you want to just grab your eyes and like pet them and treat them nicely, Mitch Gerrard and Evan Shaner are kind of like tag team champions of everything right now. They play really well off each other as far as their storytelling goes, and two completely different styles, but they mesh it up and it makes it work well. Next, a book that I'm going to take a deep breath for myself and do is I read Marvel number 44, The Earth's Mightiest Heroes, The Avengers, the end, the finale of the Enter the Phoenix. I have said it, and I will continue to say it. I don't like Jason Aaron writing the Avengers. I am continuing to pick up this title just because, I'm an Avengers mark. That's my team. It's the way that, you are with the X-Men, or Craig is with the X-Men. So it's, as a completist, I keep reading it. I have not enjoyed this story at all, the Enter the Phoenix story. It really feels like it's a cheap, like, Mortal Kombat way to shoehorn the Phoenix into an arena of the Marvel Universe that's not the X-Men. And I say all that to follow it up with a but ... This was not the worst way to end this story. I was actually really kind of impressed with the way he tied it together, and they are using it to introduce a new character into the Marvel universe that is, I don't know what they're going. I think they're calling her like Firebird or something like that. Not the Firebird that you know from the X-Men universe, but who's going to be like wielding the power of the Phoenix for a little bit. And she's got a really cool design. As far as the story goes, it felt like it was a little like rushed to get us to that point, like out of this whole, like we're going to take Earth's mightiest heroes and pair them off to, one by one and make them fight each other to want it. But you got to see some good Namor. If nothing else, like the Namor dialogue was written really well. I think Jason Aaron has a good handle on that character. I would honestly rather see him like write a Namor solo book than write another team book, because I think he does better with solo titles than he does teams. So you're not missing a whole lot if you're not reading this, and I totally understand why people have like been oil and water with this series, but I am still picking it up, and it does have its moments that some better than others, and this is one of those. And then last but certainly not least, actually one of the best things that I read this past week was Giga #3. This is the series from Vault Comics I've told you guys about. I think we read the first issue on the show. A world with big robots that are worshipped as gods, that they also live in. They have built society around, have turned into, just permeated every part of this culture, with this guy who's, a double amputee, trying to make his way in the world, not trusting a whole lot of people, kind of finds himself in between Luddites and people who are, I don't know if you want to call them techno priests or what, but in this story, a character that we thought was lost comes back. If you read that first issue, you might know who I'm talking about, but and it kind of opens up the story to a whole new set of possibilities. You also just get to see really cool robots all over the place, and not in a like Transformers kind of way, but in a they like this creature is more than what it seems, but it means
more than meets the eye. Would you say?
Well, I see what you did there.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Well, look, what's funny is I'm reading this, and at one point there was actually a robot in disguise. So it's hard not to make that connection. Dude, it's a good story. It really is, and the artwork has this really incredible, like the background is very, urban streets, graffiti everywhere, a little bit of a hip hop vibe, but the robots are like this old school, not Transformers. They're more personified than that, but the detail and the texture of them is just very interesting. And yeah, I'm digging the world building here. It's kind of like when we read Tartarus, and there were things happening in the story, obviously with the main characters, but just the world that they built around that book, just those little details that opened it up is outstanding. And Giga does a lot of the same work, and that's Packnadel, Lee, Roche, and Bidakar who are working on that. So if you're not reading that when the trade comes out, jump in that. It's fun. I think you'll dig it.
Nice.
Oh, Matt.
Yeah.
If we were going to talk about a book that just came out this week, and if we were going to say dive into some details, don't you think it would be nice of me or you to tell those fine folks at home that, we're going to spoil some things?
I think that would probably be considerate. Yeah.
Well, that's one thing we do strive to be and do on this show is we think of others more than ourselves. I mean, I would say that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I cannot imagine a more selfless thing that I do.
Just you warm my heart, Matt. But yeah, we're going to talk about a new book just came out fresh off the shelves. I thought it was fun, but we're going to spoil it a little bit because really that's the only way we can talk about it. So go check the show notes. I'll put timestamps in there if you have gotten this book and you haven't quite gotten to it. Maybe like me with the Cimmerian's Shadow on the Moon when Matt was talking about it, it's the next thing on your list. You can pause for the cause and you can go read it real quick and come back. and then you can listen to all the smart things that Mr. Matt Drogden and I are going to say, because we're going to drop some intelligence on you, some wisdom, if you will. Things are going to change the world. All right, you ready for this?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, so there is a new series, comes from, it's a little small publisher. I don't know if you've heard about it. Guys called Image Comics. They really like the letter I on all their stuff. If you notice, it's really fun. This book is written by Chip Zdarsky, and it is drawn, colored, and designed by Michael Walsh. And before we get into just kind of what happened in this book, I enjoyed it. I really did. I think it's a fun premise. I like not only what's happened in this single issue, which I don't think is going to carry forth. I think this is going to be kind of an anthology series, or at least that's the only way I can see it happening. But I like that. It's kind of like it got this ice cream man thing happening, that we spoke about. That we spoke about the haha book. It's that kind of vibe, or at least it feels like it, which I'm really liking. Because you're not getting hung up with continuity. You get to tell like thematic stories. And in this one, they're all going to be drawn by Michael Walsh, if I understand it right. And they're going to be written by different creators.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's so I was looking at the next issue, and do that without spoiling anything, but the next issue is supposed to be written by Kelly Thompson and drawn by Michael Walsh. So that's it's kind of a little bit different vibe from some of the haha and the ice cream man book, kind of flipping that script a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's that kind of like, let's play with different the craft mechanics of storytelling, and I think it's fun. Even like with Ice Cream Man, there were stories I liked better than others. With haha, I think that there's been some. I think haha's been great, just every issue. I have nothing bad to say about that. But what did you think about the first issue of Silver Coin?
Oh man, I didn't care for it. I appreciate the idea, but man, I gotta tell you, I got really bored. I got really bored. The final 2 pages were strong. I really like the way it ended. It has a compelling ending, but man, it just felt like it took forever to get there for me. I did not care for, and again, we've already given a spoiler warning, I did not care for the rock and roll band drama. It just felt milked to me, and nothing happened. It just felt like nothing happened until the final page.
I didn't need 4 stories of it. The first part of it, or 4 pages of it, I should say. The first part of it, I was like, okay, yeah, he's doing this kind of whole prima donna. I'm the thing, like I'm the driving force, and I'll leave you if I have to. You'll need to get on my level, and I got it. That's all I needed. I do know how bands work. I didn't need it by the 4th time that they really drove the point home that he was kind of an asshole and hurting his friend's feelings.
Man. Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, it was a chore. I'll be honest. It was a chore for me to finish this book.
The art carried me through, because I think the art is really strong in this book.
It is. Yeah.
It's very, very vibrant. I love honestly, one of those things I was surprised that I kept noticing was Michael Walsh used so many hues of pink in this book. And when I think about rock and roll, I don't really think about the color pink, or when I think about bands and music stories, that's not necessarily a color I think of. But as you flip through the book, he uses the different hues of pink so well. And no, I'm not talking about the color pink. It permeates the story, and it goes from, just like the barely a shade above white to like the hottest fire pink you can get. And he uses those kind of monochromatic themes all through the story, and even to the point, I mean, so as I'm looking at it now, it's not just pink that he does that with. The pink is what stood out the most to me, but he does it with green on a few pages as well, and it really sets the atmosphere on the page. So as far as like color work, like that was really, really strong. But let's not bury the lead. Let's tell the kids at home a little bit about what we're talking about. So the story opens up. Like I said, this is written by Chip Zdarsky, Michael Walsh, edited by Chris Hampton. Had a couple of variant covers. Tula Lotay did one. Maria Nguyen did one. So really good creative team on this book. Like those are some names that you most likely know if you're a big comics reader. This story opens up in 1978. Band, 3-piece band. Get the feeling they might be a little bit punky, in a way, not like a Rancid or a New York CBGB punky, but like this kind of opening scenes of punk. And they're doing their thing, playing to a club, and the first panel, you just think they're into it, man. They're doing a great job, and then what you realize is, unfortunately, there is absolutely nobody in this bar. Like the bartender is the only person there, and he's only there because he's getting a paycheck, and he woohoos them, but it's a very sarcastic woohoo, and he's just like, yeah, no, great job, guys. And they're getting a little pissed. They're like, dude, what the fuck, man? What, like, we used to rock this club every night. We've been here for years, and you're putting us at the 7:00 slot on a Friday night. Like, nobody's here. And it turns out what this club is doing is they're going in a little bit of a different direction. They're trying to, on some level, as I understand from like a business perspective, they're trying to follow the money. And at 1978, the money was in disco, apparently, according at least to what this bartender thinks, or this bar owner thinks. And he's reshifting, and so he's like, dude, rock and roll is kind of not digging any, like, doing the thing anymore. Rock is a little bit dead. So, which hurts my heart to hear anybody say, but they're going to go disco. And if you guys want to continue on, if you want to make money, if you actually want to get big, then you need to get with the Saturday Night Fever, dog. Like you gotta learn how to play to get your boogie on. And of course, he ain't hearing that, man. He's a rocker through and through. It's in his blood. And so, like, they get in a little bit of fight. He's ready to just quit, to give it all up. They go home. The next day they're at their band practice, and things aren't working out. Like they're starting to argue, and they're just like, hey, but his bandmates, one of which is his drummer, is this young woman, and she's like, dude, like we make our music though. Like, don't worry about it. We're not doing this for the fame. And he's like, no, fuck that. I'm doing this because I want out. I hate this town. I hate my life. I live with my dad. This music is supposed to be my ladder out, and here we are, just stagnant, and everything is passing us by, and we're not as good as we should be. And it's just it sucks. But while they're doing that, there's a box. The kind of so apparently somebody was spring cleaning, right? Like they were doing the mat thing, where they're going through and they're finding stuff that no longer needs to be there. And some of this stuff is stuff that his mom used to have. And his mom is not in the picture anymore. She has left. I don't think she's passed away or anything, but she's definitely, like, she's dropped the family and ran. And as they're going through this, he finds this little silver coin, and it looks like a doubloon, right? Like it looks like a Spanish galleon that you would find on the bottom of the ocean or something. It's a silver coin, as the title would lead you to know. And he's just like, what is this? Who, like, this is kind of cool. What, I don't know. It's some shit my mom left around. And they start to play, and he can't find a pick. And so he grabs this coin, and he starts to play with this coin, which I've seen people do. I grew up going with my grandpa to kind of like this honky tonk dive bar, old like country place in Prairie County. And I've seen people grab, like, beer can tabs and quarters and play music with them. And so that's not uncommon. But he starts playing with this old silver coin, and all of a sudden the dude is just, Zach Wilde. He's pumping out just amazing, and it sounds better than it ever has before. He's, everything about it. The drums even sound better, and the bass is just, thunder handed down by Thor, apparently. And they're like, whoa, like that's got to be, magic or witchcraft or something. And the dude just like, I don't give a shit what it is, because it worked. We're gonna keep doing this. And they go back that next Friday, and they're playing that opening 7 a.m. slot, and something clicks. Like, people start coming in as they're playing, and the club is just rocking again. And up against the neck of the disco scene, they're packing people in here who want to hear rock and roll. But all things are not on the up and up. As they start getting more attention, the bartender's like, hey, I'm gonna bring in this bigwig, this executive producer that's coming in. He's gonna listen to you guys. And as Matt alluded, there starts to be some infighting in the band. The lead singer, the guy who's playing with this coin, who wants to get the hell out of town, who wants music to be his ladder up, is turning into a little bit of a pretentious douchebag. Like, he's he's barking orders at his bandmates. He's telling them, hey, you know, you've got to get tighter. You've got to get better. I can't be the one carrying all this weight. I'm going to leave you guys behind. Which, you know, he's hurting some feelings of people that are supposed to be his friends. Supposed to be, you know, they're supposed to be bandmates, man. They're supposed to be a family. But he's certainly not treating them that way. And it just breaks the band up, really. Yoko Ono's the shit out of it. And then they play another gig together as a band, and the producer listens, and he walks out there and he's talking to him, but even he kind of says the same thing, that, you know, hey, look, like, this is great, but, and you guys are excellent, you specifically, but, you know, you gotta change, you know, maybe in a few years I can come back, but right now it's disco or bust. And at least to Homeboy's credit, he's not at this point ready to sell out to disco yet. He's just like, not happening. Like, I'm a rock and roll dude. But, you know, ego and time, he slips up, and he's like, okay, let me go play with this disco group just once, just see what it feels like. And he takes his coin up on stage with him after, you know, again, just trashing his bandmates. Dude's burnt every bridge in his life. And he starts playing disco with this band called the Disco Hits, you know, or the Disco Shits, depending on your feelings about disco. And once again, the coin's magic works. It does its thing, and he is shredding, like, everything is awesome, and he's playing so hard his fingers start to bleed, and he can't stop. It's compelling him to keep on. And somebody drops a cigarette and catches something on fire, and he can't stop playing, and the singer can't stop singing, and the crowd can't stop listening, and everything just blazes around them. Like, it's very much, I guess if you want to tie it into a real event, like that whole, was it Great White, who caught a bar on fire and got a bunch of people died in a fire because of Great White, because of their pyrotechnics. But, like, you just see this really beautifully drawn moment to where our guy is on stage just ripping a Telecaster, like, has already played his fingers through the bone and is just burning. He's emoliating. He's dust. And at the end of it, what you see is these firefighters. They're standing through the wreckage, and they're just like, man, there was nothing in here barring the door. We don't know what happened. The fire started naturally. Who knows what's going on? And the two firefighters are watching this other guy who's kind of sifting through, and like, what's this guy doing? And he's like, oh, that's just Luis. You know, he likes to take something from every fire. He's kind of a weird dude. We just pretend like it doesn't happen because what's it hurting anybody? And Lewis reaches down and snatches a silver coin out of a skeleton hand that's clutching it and takes it home with him. So, you know, the coin appears to be the thing that's going to carry us through, because this story's over, right? Like, everybody in this story is dead. But I'm curious to see if whether or not the coin is actually going to be the same coin, because on the last page you get the promo for the next story, which is going to take place in 1993, and it's kind of a Jason Friday the 13th kind of situation is what it appears to be. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I do think this was a really fun story. I'm down with it. You know, one and done. I think it works out really great. I didn't need, like you said, the 4 pages of prima donna, like, hurting his friend's feelings.
Yeah.
Just they could have given us more. Frankly, I would have rather seen, if you're going to fill space with repetitive storytelling, show me more of them on stage. Because the scenes where he draws these people playing, I would even like to have seen more of him, like, playing with the disco group, because those scenes are really strong, really, really emotional. The color work is great. It's very kinetic. These guys are moving. He draws rock and roll really well, I think. And I would have just been perfectly happy with more of that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm definitely more interested knowing that the writer per issue is going to change, especially, you know, the opening page the inside page, I should say, says that the silver coin is created by Michael Walsh, Ed Brisson, Jeff Lemire, Kelly Thompson, and Chip Zdarsky.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that tells me that we're going to also get stories from Ed Brisson and Jeff Lemire at least.
Yep.
So that is a much more compelling reason for me to check out what's coming next with this. As on top of, this being a one and done storyline, because if this was a continuation of this storyline, this rock and roll, I wouldn't be in for it. It just does not. It did not ring any of my bells, I got to say.
Other than and going off on a tangent just for a second, other than like a book like Jim and the Holograms, has there ever been like a band ongoing series?
Man, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know because that is a story device that I'm just not interested in. Just I don't know what it is about it, but the story device of a band struggling or not, I don't know, man. For some reason, that does not do it for me.
Yeah. Well, it's because a lot of times it's all just the same story with different people. It's just another struggling band story. Those things are just not compelling to me. You know what would be cool, and I would read the hell out of? If somebody gave us an anthology of one shots, like done like this, that's called like CBGB, and is just little one shot introduction anthology and stories of bands that played on stage at CBGBs in New York. Like you get one book where it's a little bit of the Ramones, and strictly just from somebody like me who, like, I've got a closet full of like rock docs or rock biographies where I've read the history of these bands and fun stuff. But it, like, that would be cool, where it just showcases, and maybe they tie it into like one of those band's songs is throughout to tell, like, introduce like a new audience or modern audience to who some of these people were. And I think still it would really appeal.
What would be interesting?
Like me.
What would make these kind of stories interesting to me, at least, would be, because what do we got in this story? We've got these guys playing on stage.
Mm-hmm.
There's no interaction between them and the audience. It's just, okay, these guys play music, these guys like it, but they're not successful. Now, if you were to make some kind of series or story out of the original West Coast and even East Coast punk rock scene,
mm-hmm.
that is fertile ground for great storytelling, because you've got kids, their passion outpaces their talent
mm-hmm.
in most instances. There's a hell of a lot of great stories in that scene, because between the band and audience interaction, people in the audience are throwing stuff and spitting on the band. The band is punching the audience. The band is spitting on the audience. I mean, that would be, that's fertile ground for great storytelling, as far as, if you want to talk about a band setting. But if you're just giving me a comic book about a band arguing amongst themselves because they want to do I'm just like, no.
Very, very garage bandy. Like, okay, we've seen this story before.
Just nothing about that's compelling to me.
I feel you on that. Even with even with the introduction of like the mystical coin or whatever. I feel you on that. I'm kind of the same thing. I think there's, I would like to see more rock and roll in comics. Done right. So, and again, so like you, I'm kind of excited to see what comes next. And, just looking at the cover of the next issue, it's going more of a horror story route.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we're going to get that, but
like a slasher.
Yeah.
A slasher.
Yeah. But I'm going to keep an eye on Michael Walsh, because he's an artist I'm now compelled to follow, even with the storytelling being as average. And I want to make it, I don't think the storytelling was bad. I just think it was average. Like, it's just kind of like, okay.
It wasn't ill executed.
No,
it's not for me.
It was paced a little off, I think, but this is a one shot from Chip Zdarsky, who's, writing lots of things for Marvel right now. Like, I'm sure it's like, this was not something.
This felt like a story he had on the shelf.
Right. It really did. It felt like something he had laying around. Like, okay, I can make this work to that. So let me pull this one out, which is, we have it now. It's fine. But yeah, all in all, I'm pleased that I read this, and I'm definitely going to see what they continue to do next with it. Just because, again, I am very interested right now with people playing with the medium, especially with how writers and how artists work together. And we've seen in other books where you have the same writer throughout. Again, currently drawing your attention to books like Haha, where you see how a writer can speak to different artists and how different artists play with that different style. This is kind of turning that on its head. I'm really curious to see how different writers will direct the same artist kind of in real time. Because obviously we've seen different writers, like, oh, I'm going to write this arc with the Avengers, and you're going to go over here and you're going to write Batman. You've got George Perez writing, drawing things for everybody. That's like a thing in comics, right? Like, I'm not trying to say like this common thing is uncommon, but to do it in real time from like issue to issue, I think that's cool. Telling a story that is threaded together. I think that's neat. I'm curious to see how they pull that off.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
So I digs it. What is your, since I, obviously buying time, this is the part where Craig would say something just, about rock and roll and awesomeness. One of the things I love, and I think I've loved it more in the last few years, is the design of the Telecaster. So I was when I was growing up, my favorite guitar was the Les Paul. My favorite guitarist played the Les Paul. Jimmy Page, Slash, just throughout the list. I could go on and on and on. Then, because metal, horns in the air, it was the Flying V, Randy Rhoads, all of these metal gods just rocking the Flying V. But as I have become older and, listening to a wider swath of music, I've grown to appreciate the Telecaster design, and also the sound that a Telecaster makes. And I know you're a as big, if not bigger, music fan than I am. Do you have like a favorite guitar design and sound?
I really don't. It's all about the guy that's using it.
Yeah.
Or it's all about he or her that's using it, I should say. But in the industry, but let's be honest, the genre I'm listening to, there's almost no female artists. So,
Yeah, there's not, as far like, and more so than just metal. It's you're bigger into like punk thrash, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to think. Yeah, I can't come up with one off the top of my head. I'm sure there are. Like, I'm sure as far as like underground music goes.
Well, I mean, the one exception I can think of is like the Runaways.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the exception that proves the rule. They're just not out there in that genre to speak of.
Even in metal, period, there's been several metal bands that have female singers, but
sure, yeah.
And I know you probably don't think about, I know you probably don't like their style of music, but Kitty comes to mind as far as being like an all female metal group. And I was a little bit more into like the new metal sound, obviously, than you are, but Kitty was good metal to me, built on the fact that these were young women who were in almost completely male dominated space, and they still had it wasn't this thing where they were like built up and just put on stage. Because there's a couple of bands now that I'm like, okay, I don't really believe you wrote this music, and it doesn't feel like you. But Kitty wasn't that. Like, this was Kitty's music.
Yeah, I remember when Kitty hit the scene. They were respected. They were respecting the metal scene. One of the stories I remember clearly is on Headbangers Ball. Look it up, kids.
Mm-hmm.
That Pantera was talking about Kitty being on tour with them, and they were on like a festival tour, and that several of the Kitty band members could keep up with Pantera's drinking, which was noteworthy.
Yeah, it is. It's hilarious that you brought those two people together, those two bands together, because I literally have the two biggest people that I ever met through Hot Topic when I did a short stint folding t-shirts there just after high school. I met Vinnie Paul, and I met two of the two sisters from Kitty.
Wow.
because they were friends. The two sisters from Kitty's were actually friends with the store manager. And he knew that he was like a roadie for them. And sometimes they've still got a strong relationship, I think. But yeah, Vinnie Paul came in when they were doing a show. He was doing a show with Hell Yeah at the time. And they came in and they bought all the Halloween costumes to give to people to wear on stage that night.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fun. And just a polite dude I've got some issues with Pantera, and and this is just for me, like some ethical issues with continuing to support Pantera's music because of Phil Anselmo. But I can't say that extends to Vinnie Paul. Just a really, really nice, really polite, well-respected dude.
So, killer drummer too.
Amen. Like lift up a black tooth grin to that guy. Back to the book real quick. Did you have the same thought that I did on the opening page where you saw the band on stage for the first time? And is it just me, or is the bassist William H. Macy?
I did. That was not. That was no. Yeah, I didn't get that from that.
The bassist is rocking like a 1982 dad mustache. Like we're talking like Sam Elliott size, just big bushy mustache. Yeah, I'm like, that's William H. Macy.
That's funny.
Well, what else did you read this week, brother?
So I'm going to talk about an old book that I pulled back out and reread with the intention specifically on talking about it, from 2015, Dynamite Publishing, James Bond 007. This was, of course, this particular arc is called VARGR, and it was written by Warren Ellis.
Yes.
And the artist is Jason Masters. I picked this up on a whim. I've had no history with and no historical interest in 007 whatsoever. I'd never watched a 007 movie my entire life.
Really?
It's just a character that I never took the time to be interested in. But I picked this up because I saw Warren Ellis's name on it, and I think I had a light stack that week, so I thought I'd try it out. This was a tremendous run that Warren Ellis did with this 007 book. He ended up writing 12 issues. The first arc was called VARGR. The second arc was called Eidolon. And I absolutely loved this series. And again, this is coming from somebody that has no historical interest in 007 whatsoever. It's really easy to read. It's not text heavy. You know, the opening first few pages have no dialogue whatsoever. But the story is 007 is being sent on a mission by MI6 headquarters to track down a new drug ring that's got some very specific dangerous potential if it gains strength on the market. But the English government has passed an ordinance removing 007's, or the 00 program, their license to carry weapons. So they've taken 007's gun, but they're sending him, they're sending him to the United States. And like, once you get to the States, you can reacquire a gun there. You just can't travel with the gun within the country, which is interesting. But Warren Ellis writes 007 exceptionally well, the James Bond character. As far as that goes, he writes everybody well in this story. Especially, Moneypenny, the scene with Moneypenny is great. This is just good old-fashioned storytelling. It is a very grounded story. There's no fantastic elements to it to speak of. So it feels like a crime thriller, a very ground level crime thriller. I cannot recommend this series enough. If you have any passing interest in, like the Mission Impossible movies or the Mission Impossible type,
Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne-ish type things. If you like crime fiction, this is great. If you just like a crime fiction story. If you're an Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips fan, I recommend this. It's just damn good writing, damn good storytelling that got me interested in 007 like I've never been before. I stayed, even after Warren Ellis stopped after his 12-issue run, I stayed on this series for quite a few runs. The next run was done by Andy Diggle. He's an old 2000 AD guy. Well, not an old guy, but he was like the second generation 2000 AD
right,
guy.
Yeah.
His story was great. His story was really good. And following Warren Ellis, there's a lot to be said for that. And then there's a few other writers, very noteworthy writers that picked up and did a few arcs with this 007 run, and they were all really, really strong for a long time. I couldn't believe how long I stayed on this 007 run that Dynamite did. And not to mention, I think it's noteworthy for them to write, so many good stories with an existing property like this. And so often mediocre at best is what you get with these established properties.
Yeah.
So that it's just, this is something that I always mention. And at the time when it was coming out, I kept telling people about it. I'm like, man, I'm telling you that, and people, it seems like everybody I ran across like, yeah, I'm not really into 007. I'm like, that's why you need to read it. I'm not either. And it's outstanding. And I got a few other people to read it as well back in the time when it was coming out. But I just wanted to bring that one up because it is such a good story that I did not expect to be half as interested in as I was, but just through very great storytelling by, Warren Ellis and Jason Masters. Jason Masters' illustration of all the characters is great. His fight scenes that he illustrates are over the top good. They're so damn good. They're so fun to look at. No quippy dialogue to speak of that would be outside the 007's personality. 007's personality felt very on point, not inflated, not over inserting the quippy dialogue. And it's very English humor, which I love. Good English humor, which is clever, understated type humor. So yeah, I really, really recommend this series. And, you can get it you can get online and find it digitally, obviously, but you can find it in collected editions. Single issues are not going to be expensive because it's just one of these adapted properties, and those rarely, are skyrocketing in value, but it's very much worth your time.
So you want me to boost your ego for just a second?
Absolutely. I need all that I can get.
I figured you did. I felt it in my soul. I was actually one of those people that you told to read this story, and based solely on the power of your persuasion and Warren Ellis, I did. I read it as it was coming out. I read both of those arcs, and I cannot agree with you more. So I have seen all the 007 movies, most of them. Not. I don't think I've seen the entire catalog. I grew up in the Pierce Brosnan 007 era, but I've seen a lot of the Connery stuff, a lot of the Brosnan stuff. Seen most of the new stories, and number one, it surprises me to know that you have not watched those movies, because I would think for sure that would be something that you would be into, because I know how much you love like mystery and spy thrillers. Some of them get a little hokey, especially in the, you've got what is it, like Jaws, the big guy with metal stuff. So some of it can get hokey. The newer ones, especially the last one where the villain was the same guy from No Country for Old Men. I think you would dig that.
See, the strength of this series got me watching the 007 movies.
Did they? Okay. Yeah.
So I started going back. First thing I did is I went back and watched the Daniel Craig. I've seen all the Daniel Craig series. Yeah, loved them. I love them.
So, but what I was going to say, I was going to follow that with is I have not read any of the 007 comics or like the novelizations, anything. Everything about 007 to me comes from the film. And where I was going with that is you saying that, he writes all these characters really well, but having never seen the movies, you don't know how, if you've never seen the movies and don't have a history with these characters, you don't know how just right you are. Like he writes, like, gets these side characters, Moneypenny, all of them. his ability to like funnel that essence of almost what, like 50 years now of different takes on these characters and just make them feel so natural and right was mind-blowing. And for me, and this is Warren Ellis, who you know, Warren Ellis doesn't bat 1,000 with me, but he's up there with, like, he bats 800, 700 for me. I mean, sometimes with some of these things, some of his like mainstream work, Warren Ellis has phoned it in before. Like we've talked about that. But when he really enjoys something, when he really wants to write something cool, when he's bought into it, very few people can do the work that he does. And what is fascinating to me in some of his more recent work, in the last like 10 years or so, is that he has honed his scripts and got his scripts so tight that he is able to let his artists do the storytelling. And in a visual medium, that's something that obviously your storytelling is being done by your artist. But in this, like you said, the very first few pages, almost no dialogue, there's no narration, but you can read it. It's his scripts are that tight. And at first I was like, maybe that's just how good this artist is, but the thread is through Warren Ellis's work. You go back and look what he did with Karnak, you see some of the same things. I have got to read, not all of it, but I've gotten to read some of the Batman work that you were gushing about last year, the first few issues of that. And he's doing the same thing there. Like his scripting is just so tight that he doesn't need narration or juxtaposition to tell the story. He's letting his artist do the heavy lifting, and it works so freaking well. Have you ever read his Karnak stuff?
Karnak was amazing. Karnak was so much better than it deserved to be.
Like it blows my mind that when Marvel was trying their damnedest to make the Inhumans a thing, literally trying to shove them down readers' throats. And some of it I liked, right? Like some of it was good stuff. But like after reading Karnak, I'm like, why did you not why were you letting Brian Bendis kind of lead the charge with this? Why were you not letting Warren Ellis do this? Because Warren Ellis, being the director of the Inhumans side of that universe, based on his work on Karnak, is outstanding.
Yeah, of course, Marvel had a lot of faith in Bendis for the right reasons, but
right.
Realistically speaking, getting Warren Ellis to write more than 6 issues of any given thing at Marvel Comics is pretty damn slim. Yeah. I mean, he just had his history is 6 issues and he's done. He wants to go back to doing his if he's going to do anything long form, he's going to do it in his creator owned stuff.
Yeah. I think he was unfortunately some work with Avatar Press at that point. Was it Avatar that he was working with then?
He's been working with Avatar consistently for years until they kind of went kaput. So I'm sure he was.
Yeah, because he, I want to say he was the one who was able to get Alan Moore in the door at Avatar too. Not that. Like, let me rephrase that. He was the one that convinced
Alan Moore,
to come bless Avatar with his moreness.
Yeah.
But it's the mechanics of his storytelling, and some of my favorite things that he does are those fight scenes where it's just there's no words. It's just cerebrally breaking down people panel by panel. And
it's interesting, Warren Ellis, his writing just reeks of confidence in his own craft. He just reeks of confidence in his own craft. It's really nice.
Well, and for as long as he's been doing it, when he's not phoning in a story, which again, it does happen from time to time, not often, but you can tell like even those stories are not the world's worst. So it's just I don't care. I'm just gonna give you I'm gonna give you vanilla, but it's gonna be really good vanilla. But when he's interested in something, when he's still playing with like the mechanics of visual and sequential storytelling, what fascinates me is that he carries that confidence through, but he's still willing and eager to take chances. Like he's still playing with the craft of the medium. He is confident, but he's not complacent. He's still growing as a writer, and you see that, and you're just like, how is there any more room at the top for you to grow up in your craft? Somehow he just keeps doing it.
He's He's so dependable, man. He's so dependable as a writer.
So I didn't follow on to Andy Diggle's run, and from it sounds like I should have. Maybe I need to go back and jump in the back issue bins and see if I can find that, because like I said, I wasn't a 007 person. That's not my forte. So I need to maybe follow up on that, because it sounds like it was just a good run.
It was. It really was.
Nice. Well, you remember like an hour ago when we first started talking on this show, and I was doing a short stack, and in that short stack I talked about Avengers number 44 and how I wasn't happy with it as a run.
I was trying to forget about it, but
you brought it back up. Well, sometimes when you plant a seed in shit, something beautiful blossoms out of it.
Poetic.
Yeah, right. That's my English degree kicking in, and they said it would never be useful. So there is a book that came out 2 weeks ago that I picked up on for two reasons. Number one, I like the character, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. The writer is Steve Orlando, who is somebody that I really have enjoyed a lot of what he's done. And I really, even the things that I read of his, like he's got another book right now called Commanders in Crisis that I'm not like completely sold on, but I see some of the chances. It's kind of like what I was just saying with Warren Ellis, taking chances in storytelling. I see what he's trying to do with it, and he's trying to grow as a writer, and that makes me respect it. And watching him like hone his craft or take chances, even when those chances fail, I appreciate. So I continue to read his stuff even when I'm not in love with the story. But he wrote a book called Avengers Curse of the Man-Thing. And I was like, okay, look, Steve Orlando, who I continually pick up just based on his name alone, because I enjoy watching him. You know, I really enjoy the stories that I really enjoy, and I find aspects of the books that I don't. So I've got to get this, right? And I had no idea what this was going to be about. There's a woman on the cover of it. Don't recognize her. She looked a little bit like Dagger, and I was like, oh, who knows what this is going to be? Let me snatch it up. And I got a really cool variant cover when I say that it's got the woman on there. So I don't know if that was on every one of them. But this is by an artist named Francesco Mobley, who I'm not familiar with. I recognize the name. I know I've read stuff that he's done before. I just haven't. I didn't do the due diligence of coming like flipping through my catalogs or getting on the internet to see what I've read of his before. I recognize the style, recognize the name. I can't for the life of me figure out where I've seen him before, because he's got kind of a painterly style, and he didn't do the colors on this. Guru FX did, but the way he does his inks, it really gives his panels a painterly style to it that I found interesting. So when I said that, sometimes something planted in shit grows into something pretty, this book absolutely stems out of the earlier days of Jason Aaron's Avengers runs. There is a group of eco-terrorists that are old women. They are these like, octogenarian women who have become eco-terrorists, and they're trying to keep, they're battling global warming, but they're not doing it in the right ways. And one of them has a great niece who has broken some rules. She has taken the work of Horticulture, which is this eco-terrorist organization, specifically their work with a figure from the swamp that we know and love, Man-Thing, to try to put the hand on the scale, so to speak, to really kill mankind. They are wanting to obliterate mankind from Earth, and they're wanting to let like natural selection and the plants take back over, which in and of itself is not natural selection, right? Like they're defeating, they're hypocritical in their own design, especially this young woman whose name is the Harrower. And she has laced this into her DNA, and it's because of what she's done. Her body is just like, there's all of these red lines that just permeate her body. She's got some type of like plant powers, and she is going to, instead of, she's not just tipping the scale, she's stomping the scale. She's going to unleash this Man-Thing power on the world that she's stolen. Because what happens when, somebody with fear touches the man thing? Well, they burn. If you can harness that, and you can harness the power of plants all over the world and pollen and everything else, then if you can lace in that man thing that burns with the touch of fear all over the globe, then you have essentially just emoliated the planet. Like every human being who touches a plant will die, who, breathes in pollen will die. Because like right now it's springtime and I can't walk outside without just hating my face. Luckily I don't spontaneously combust, which is what happens in this book. But this book is a little bit of a bigger, thicker story. You're getting more bang for your buck. It's $4.99, but it's more than just like your average 28-page comic. She a little bit thick. This woman, the harrower, she sets a trap for Man Thing, because at this time, Man Thing, this is obviously set a little bit back in the timeline. Man Thing has not joined the Avengers as Boy Thing yet. If you've been strong like me, fist in the air, and continue to read, that Boy Thing is currently a machine gun shawl for Blade, who shoots out spikes at vampires from time to time. But Man Thing's still kicking it in Florida. He's still in Citrusville in the swamp. And the harrower sets a trap for him. She's got this old man like tethered to a tree and, screaming out for help. And Man Thing kind of walks up to him and he just explodes, like roots burst out of him. And the harrower is able to fight Man Thing. And she doesn't burn because she's not scared. And, it's really easy. And I think it's, as far as like description, it's necessary to draw a bridge over to Swamp Thing, to DC. She's almost like a creature of the green if this was in DC. So he can't fight her in the way that he would fight other villains, because she's almost just a plant, because it's some of Man Thing's own DNA that's floating around inside her. But as they're fighting, she gets a hold of him and she just rips basically his soul out of him. And all that she's left with is the husk of Man Thing. Where does he go? Well, we don't really know, but we know that what happens after this, these giant trees start sprouting out all over the world. And all of the Avengers, like across the globe, jump in, because when people walk up, like one of the scenes is in New York, the dude walks up to take a selfie with this giant like sprout that's popped out of the ground near the Brooklyn Bridge, leans on it, and then poof, just flames everywhere. He looks like the Human Torch, but not for very long. He gets a little ashy. But yeah, so these things are happening globally. I mean, they're happening in Wakanda. And so the Avengers, Thor, Blade, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Captain America, She-Hulk, Ghost Rider, they kind of scatter to try to mitigate the damage and try to figure out what's going on. And eventually they start to figure out a little bit of what's happening, as they're battling it, and they start being able to like get people inside away from everything. She-Hulk in this issue is amazing. I love the way Steve Orlando writes her, and I love the way she's drawn. She's bulkier than like the old school Byrne She-Hulk, but she's not nearly as Banner Hulkish as you've seen in some of the more recent Avengers. Like she's somewhere in between. She's really buff, really muscular, but she's very also like remains like Selene and not bulky, if that makes sense. She's having a field day. She's just smashing things left and right, because these bird creatures have started like flying out of the plants. But Captain America is, he's beside himself. He's distraught and he gets overwhelmed by the plants, but he doesn't burn, which is interesting. As everybody else is getting touched by these plants, Captain America doesn't burn, but these vines wrap around him and they tie him down. And he has apparently choked into unconsciousness, but where he wakes up at, it's kind of reminiscent, you might say, derivative of the movies where Thanos and where Hawkeye wake up after they've gotten the stone and from death and like sitting in a pool of water, very alone. But in this scene, Cap's not alone. There are these figures from Cap's life that come up, and it becomes kind of a Cap story at this point, because who he sees are these folks like Nuke, the dude with the flag tattoo on his face. William Burnside, the anti-Captain America, Clinton McIntyre, who was Protocide. They're all there. These are all people whose lives were affected / ruined by use of the super soldier serum that gave Cap his powers. And they are angry, and he doesn't know at this point where he's at, like who these, like, is this a real place? Like, what is this? And so he starts fighting them, but he gets, in this world with all these other superheroes, super soldiers, they're all kind of even matched, and he starts to get a little the scale is unbalanced. Like, he starts to losing the fight, but out of nowhere, this figure helps him out a little bit, tosses him a shield, and they start working together. And he's, once they kind of defeat these other guys and these apparitions go away, he's talking to him, and he's like, well, who are you? I don't recognize you. And he's just like, well, we've never actually met, but, and you have no reason to know me, but I'm Man-Thing. I'm the scientist that was working with the super soldier serum when it literally blew up in my face and it turned me into that monster. And then, I was in there the whole time, but I wasn't there. But this woman came along and she corrupted me. She literally separated my body from my soul. And that's what's causing all of that out there in the world that's happening. And on some level, I blame you, but I also blame me for working on these things. But I'm a part of your history. You're a part of my history, and that's why I'm here with all of these other superheroes. And it really ties back to those early issues of the Marvel horror universe where Dr. Ted Sallis was doing that work, and the genesis of Man-Thing. Which I thought was great. And the story ends with kind of a surprise. There's a little bit of a change in continuity that I have no idea if it's going to stick. I don't know if I even like it, because it does throw a wrench into like those early days, that history of Man-Thing and Ted Sallis. But just the superhero comics have not been doing a lot for me lately. And, Matt, I know we've talked about that. There's a few really, really great books, but above and beyond, there's not a lot that really makes me fall in love with the worlds anymore. And part of that is because when people use continuity, they really seem to let it like choke out the story. Like, they're so dedicated to showing off how encyclopedic they are in their knowledge, or something, that they just get lost in the continuity. And the few times that continuity heavy stories have shown up recently that I've really enjoyed are kind of like this, where they throw you back to the past, they remind you of the history, but then they bring it back and they change something. They take a chance with it. They're not like shackled to that continuity, and they don't need to, I guess, put all the toys back in the sandbox immediately. Like, I'm sure that they're going to, because that tends to be what happens. But Steve Orlando is really letting it flex a little bit. Like, he's letting these things live outside of that continuity. And I don't know if he's writing it, but this is similar to what we just talked about. There's a Spider-Man Curse of the Man-Thing story coming up next. And like I said, I don't know if that's Steve Orlando. I don't know if it's Francesco Mobley who's going to be drawing it. I'm definitely going to check it out though. But dude, do yourself a favor. If you haven't picked this up, like, grab it off the shelf and just look at it, because it's beautiful. Like, Mobley is, like I said, I know he's not doing the colors. The colors are excellent. They work really, really well, but his figures and the way that he uses the ink, like, he's got to be a traditional artist. I don't see how he can do this with digital, but it reminds me a little bit of like a little bit. There's a little bit of Rick Veitch in there, in the way that he is, using the shading and using those lines and the figures. He muddies it up a little bit, but in a good way. If you throw back to Rick Veitch, is it Veitch or Veitch?
Depends on who's saying his name, as far as I can tell.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
It's like, it's all over the place.
But yeah, any chance you picked this up and read this?
I thought about it. I thought about it for a bit because of the man thing. But ultimately I passed. The storyline, had that Avengers, had that Avengers title on it, and I was like,
right. No, and I get it. I 1000 based on like what we've just said. If I remember, I'm gonna make myself a mental note and put a pin in it. I may bring you my issue and leave it in your box at Kapow Comics. So and if you read it and you're like, oh, okay, like I might want to follow this and see what happens next, and you want to pick up a copy. But I'm really curious what you think about this, because like I said, I know you, neither one of us have really enjoyed what's happening in Avengers, but this stems out of that, and really I kind of want more of like this. Like this is just as not just as ridiculous. This is ridiculous in the sense of what's happening in the story as some of the things that Aaron's done, but this just feels more controlled, and it feels like it's got more of a. As I'm reading Jason Aaron's characters, I really don't feel like they're the same characters that I've known and loved from the Avengers. And I get that they're supposed to be different, but the characters as Orlando writes them are different. They are the modern version of these characters, but there's still enough of that old structure that I'm good with it. I can follow it, and it reminds me of those things. So I don't know. I think Steve Orlando just did a really good piece of work. And playing with the man thing. I walked right into that one. Just stepped right. I really like it when Steve Orlando plays with my man thing. So look up some of the images on Google. I think you'll be impressed with them.
I did look at, I mean, it looked great, and I was real close to picking it up because I feel like the man thing character hasn't been given a really good story in a long time.
No,
and it's an interesting character to me, but I have negative association with the Avengers titles.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm right there with you. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try to do myself do you a solid and me a solid, and put this in your box to look at. You can have my copy, because these things. I'm getting to be past the point to where I need to hold on to everything in a box upstairs, and I say that as like I've got 22 long boxes upstairs that I need to like start dwindling down. So I'm gonna put this in your box because I want you to read it. I think you'll have fun with it.
Interesting. So do I understand what you just said? You're kind of beyond the point of collecting them physically anymore. It doesn't really appeal to you anymore.
There are some titles that I'm absolutely going to collect. Like, so I've got a full run of like the second volume of Hulk. I've probably got 60% of volume 1 of the Hulk. That's never going to go away. The Avengers is probably never going to go away. Conan is probably never going to go away. There are some like independent stories that I'm going to always hold on to, the single issues. But we buy a lot of comics, right? Like I come home every week, even on light weeks. On light weeks, I'll go to the shelf and pick up stuff that I'm not reading just to check out and see if maybe I need to dive back in. All that stuff gets bagged and boarded. Like 12 or 14 comics a week get bagged and boarded, and they get put in boxes in my attic. And there's stuff I don't care about. There's stuff that I'm never going to read again.
Yeah.
There's stuff that I'm not, like single issues from the middle of runs that don't make sense contextually because I have no idea what came before and after them. And I was talking to Roger, and like, cause we're thinking about moving in the next like 5 years. Like once I get out of law school and we want a different house in a different neighborhood, all that fun stuff. I'm like, I'm going to have to move 22 fucking long boxes. Why? And that's on top of, in my office, I've got at least 2 bookshelves full of hardcovers and omnibuses, and that is ever growing. I've got a shelf in there that's literally 4 short boxes of stuff that I'm planning on sending out and mailing to, different comic friends. I split them up between July and Christmas. I'm part of these like Christmas in July or care package groups that we just trade each other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's all going away. So I'm just like, if it's not something that's beloved to me, if it's not a character that I'm beholden to or a creator that I've followed for a long time and that's one of my favorites, why is it sitting in my attic like putting stress on my rafters.
Yeah.
So, or even if it's the single issues, if they're not worth any money, why not reinvest in the hardcover that is easier to take care of and that, quite frankly, looks better on the shelf?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And that might be a summer project to maybe go through and at least get rid of 2 long boxes worth of comics.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And if I do that, obviously I'll take pictures and you get first dibs and Craig gets first dibs.
Yeah. Let me know. Yeah, I missed out on a bunch of stuff I would have bought from Craig. I got onto him for that shit too.
Yeah. I need to go through there. I know he said because our buddy Craig just sold a bunch of his stuff. I'm a sucker and I'm trying to complete a full run of Marvel Comics Presents. And I'm so close, and I know he sold a bunch of that stuff to Kyle, so I've got to get in there and check that stuff out. Because
son of a bitch sold not the first appearance, but Red Sonja #1. He sold that without consulting me. So he told me that. I pulled my belt off and I just went to town with my belt right in the middle of Kapow Comics.
You bend him over your knee?
And no, I just chased him around the store. Wherever the belt landed, and everybody was cheering me on. It's like, yes, he deserves that. Yes, he's a monster. They were giving me. They thought I took it light on him because I didn't spray the belt down with water first.
Of all the times that no one whips out their cell phone.
Yeah.
Well, man, now you got me wanting to go back and read 007. So that might need to be I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to do some homework first, but I may have to go find that 007 story and look at it.
Well, I would say, if you've already read the Warren Ellis stuff, I would encourage you to pick up where he dropped off.
The Diggle
read the next, the Diggle, and there's a few, and the Diggle did the next, and there's a few other very noteworthy writers that did some arcs that are strong.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's hard to follow Warren Ellis, but these guys did a really good job.
Man, you're twisting my arm over here. I can feel it. So
yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, hopefully, hopefully next week we're going to get more good stuff. Each Tuesday and Wednesday, new comic books drop at our local comic shop, which, we've said the name a few times. Don't need to say it more. They know where we shop. We're going to go pick up some new stuff. And as always, I am ever curious about what you are looking forward to grabbing next week. I'm going to let you go first on this one.
I'm really looking forward to Batman the Detective from DC Comics, because this one is written by Tom Taylor and illustrated by Andy Kubert. What else needs to be said?
Ooh, Tom Taylor, nice.
Tom Taylor and Andy Kubert working together on a Batman story called The Detective.
Yeah.
So leads you to believe this is a detective story, which I feel like has been missing from the Batman, storylines in a long, long time. So I'm really looking forward to this. It's only a 6-issue series, so you're not committed to much if you pick it up, but I'm looking forward to this one.
As far as storytelling, we all know Andy Kubert, but as far as storytelling goes, Tom Taylor's hotness.
Oh yeah. Both these guys, man. These are 2 super talented guys put together here.
Well, apparently our brains are kind of synced up and playing in the same sandbox, because my book that I want to encourage folks to go pick up this next week also comes from DC Comics. It's called Challenge of the Supersons. It is written by Peter J. Tomasi. Jorge Jimenez does the covers, but it's Max Rayner who's doing the work on the inside. I love Supersons. I don't know why I loved them so much when that book came out, but it's Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent. And this is Jonathan Kent, apparently young. This is plays in the world before Bendis took him out to space and aged him up. But it's him and Damian getting back into some shenanigans. It's really fun. So I'm really looking forward to this and seeing what Tomasi does with these kids, because they're like, it is just distilled pure fun kid adventure stories that they've been in. So go check out the Challenge of the Supersons. And hey, dude, obviously we're a man down this week. Did you see anything else? Was there another book that you happened to see that maybe caught your eye?
As far as something that I would be interested in, or something that I would predict Craig would be interested in.
Let's pull out your crystal ball. What do you think Craig might be interested in?
That's a tough one. I don't remember seeing any new cave woman stories coming out. So I mean, it could be anybody's guess as far as what Craig would be into. I know he's going to be looking forward to this Batman story. This is something he and I agree on is Batman detective stories, or something we've both been missing for a long time. But yeah, I mean, what would Craig be into?
Well, I see one thing.
I mean, this Locke and Key Sandman universe, Hell and Gone. Yeah. That sounds like that's right up his alley.
That is absolutely right up his alley. I think he's really going to enjoy that.
Joe Hill's, the cover looks really compelling too. It's got the Sandman mask on the cover,
the gas mask, kind of xenomorph looking thing.
Gabriel Rodriguez is doing this one. So I think that's a pretty safe bet that he'll be into that one.
Safe like you're wearing your seatbelt.
Right.
So Hell and Gone, #1. Check that out.
Yeah, IDW Publishing.
Yeah, just really strong stuff. And then, just because 4 books, good round number. Guardians of the Galaxy #1. It's actually number 13, but as legacy numbering goes, it is number 175 is also going to hit the stands. I bring this up because it's written by our beloved man, Al Ewing, who is just fire right now. It's Juan Frigeri who's doing the arts on it. If you need any more coaxing, and this is what drew my eye to it, period. This is Guardians of the Galaxy. And so you've got Star-Lord, you've got Gamora, you've got Groot, Rocket, not on the cover. So who knows where he's at? I haven't been keeping up with him. Nova is in the center of the issue. But if you look off to each side, there's 2 new figures who are new, at least new to the Guardians universe. It's Wiccan and Hulkling. Apparently, and Hulkling right now being the emperor of the Kree Skrull Empire. And these are adult looking versions of themselves. And, those are my boys. Those are my dudes. Also would be in a throuple with them if they asked, just throwing that out to the universe. Let me know how that works out. So, but yeah, so grab that. You can't go wrong with Al Ewing. So
nice.
Well, brother, do we have anything else we want to throw out there to the universe? You got anything you need to say?
No, man, we covered it all.
This was fun. I enjoyed doing this with you.
Yeah, missed Craig on this one, obviously, but
yeah,
his loss.
I feel like obviously his presence was missed, but I feel like we filled in that gap as best we could.
As best we could. Yeah. Obviously, we were not at full strength, but as best we could.
You threw 007 right in that hole.
Yeah, right.
Just filled it on. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna quit. I'll go home now. You got your voice ready?
Yep.
All right, we're gonna go forth and we're gonna love some comics.
Woohoo!
Can you please spell how you think that is spelled? was it?
Yeah.